I think this is bad news for Peter. The symbiote's been lacking iron in their diet. Here's a look at the Hasbro Marvel Spider-Man Venom versus Iron Spider. The Marvel superheroes take on alien symbiote powers to battle Venom and his horde of venomized villains. This collectible Marvel figure features 9 points of articulation, so kids can easily pose their Venom Spidey toy for playtime and display. Looks of it, we seem to be going back to looking at this line again. I know I had told myself really I was going to be done collecting these unless I found the Iron Spider. Sure enough, though, as I had gone to my local Walmart there to pick up everything else other than toys, the worst thing that you really can do is go to a place to pick up one thing and then just say, well, while I'm here, I'm just going to wander down the aisles and just see what they have now for figures. And sure enough, as I walked my way down, I like to think I have longer legs than what I'm doing right now, but as I walked down the aisle, I happened to look across, and on the side that would have had the Spider-Man toys, right out there, as the front-faced figure, they had an Iron Spider. So that's what ended up, that's what caused me to pick this figure up, and that's what's now brought us to this review. Speaking of review, you probably couldn't help but notice that the camera's pretty far back. Why is that? We're going to be bringing also back in the VenomVersus Rex. One of the, I don't want to say the things I really shouldn't have picked up, because in the end, it's a VenomVersus Rex. I mean, it's a T-Rex that has a big giant tongue. How can you say no to that? Some would say I could easily say no to that. Apparently, this guy couldn't. I'm going to take, though, the tape measure, and we're going to see how tall Iron Spider stands. It stands to reason, though, that the figure is obviously going to be using the same size of body, not necessarily the same sculpt as the other Spider-Man figures. Because of that, he is going to stand the same at 4 inches in height, or roughly 10 centimeters tall. So it seems like I've been dropping a small fortune picking up the VenomVersus figures. We started kind of things first with Spider-Man. We did also, at that time, picked up the Venom, and sort of that snowballed everything after the fact. Eventually, though, I got around to getting the Spider-Man that had the sort of the Venom suit over top of that. I was kind of looking at this one as being the Spidey Senses Spider-Man. And of course, I eventually did get around to finding this symbiote Spider-Man, so that was all good for that. Here's also what the figure looks like with the Venom that came included with the big giant venomized symbiote wings. And of course, the reasoning why we brought the camera back as far as we did, here's also what he looks like with the VenomVersus Rex. We can now be a little more reasonable with how close we are away from the figure. And as we get closer to the figure, we can also examine as well the accessories the figure comes included with. As of course this is the Iron Spider, the figure does also have his mechanized arms. Not really much in the way of mechanical movement these arms will do, because unfortunately they're all just done in plastic. I don't really know why they chose to do these in green. Well, I guess I do know why they chose them in green, in the same way that Spidey had his snot shooters. I guess they chose, this is really the part that's being represented by the VenomVersus symbiote armor. Still, though, if you're really going to be taking the time to make the arms like this, why wouldn't they have just also made them the exact same color as normal Iron Spider? Well, then, again, some would say, well, what would be the point of even having this guy as part of the VenomVersus line? Thank you. Well, I guess I shouldn't say thank you. I'm glad that they did release this figure, but I really would have preferred, though, that they released them with the yellow arms instead of these green. Again, they are very soft plastic, all of these arms, and there really isn't necessarily a rhyme or reason for the way that they attach onto the figure's body. Obviously, attaching them to the front, you'd be dead wrong. You'd have to attach them from the back. And on the back, you'll see that the holes are exactly the same size. It's not that one is specifically a triangle shape, or that another one is a diamond shape, or one is a circular shape. They all seem to be, though, like hexagonal shapes. So when it comes to attaching these arms, you basically, though, if I just put the figure down here for a second, you get two arms that are somewhat of the same size. In fact, actually, if you look at the two, they probably would be identical. And then you have one that's a little bit longer. Based on that, I chose to take the longer one and attach it on the bottom of his body, or in the bottom hole here. And if you don't want to have it necessarily there, you can just do away with what I'm doing right now and just choose to have it somewhere else. But I think that works better to have the longer leg at the bottom of the figures. Then we're going to go, of course, take the other ones. And these are really easy, by the way, to do. I mean, even though really it isn't technically a hexagonal shape, you get a circular peg. Plugging them in place is really easy to do. If you put enough pressure in there as well, it ensures, though, the legs aren't going to be going anywhere. And even then, if you change your mind down the road, it doesn't seem like it's a difficult time at all to remove them. I was kind of thinking, though, that once they were forced in place, that if you tried to pop them off, it would probably fracture the plastic. But, you know, it's that kind of gummy plastic. I really don't think you have anything to really worry about. Just plugging everything, though, in. There's a little bit of posability, too. So with the way that they are pegged in place, Technically, you can rotate them, but you can only rotate them just by a little bit. So that's what he looks like. Still, it looks weird and out of place to have Spider-Man with green arms like this, but I guess that's really the thing that caused this figure at least to be part of the VenomVersus line. If not for that, maybe we never would have gotten the Iron Spider figure, and I could have not even had the review going for this guy right now. Unfortunately, with these arms all in the way, it makes things a little bit harder to kind of show you guys the details on the figure, as I'll do my best to kind of show you guys here. He seems, though, to be using, let's just grab the example here. He seems to be using, for the most part, the same, I would even say like the same legs all the way down to at least the knees. Further down from the knees, obviously, though, you can see that the Iron Spider does actually have sculpted boots. These aren't just painted. Well, they are painted, but they're not just painted over top of the molded plastic. They're actually sculpted there. So while the tops of the legs, and the only real reason why I'm actually using Symbiote Spider-Man is just because, again, he's kind of the more basic body. The tops of the arms seem to be the same. Obviously, the lower arms are going to be a little bit different, and the tops of the thighs seem to be the same as I'm tapping on both. So there is a few things that obviously they probably would have still used the basic body and then just retooled, repurposed some of the elements that they need to change to make this guy look like Iron Spider. Like, for example, of course, he does have these spider eyes. Now, even really when you're looking at the two eyes, are they the same? One would say no, one would say yes. I actually kind of feel like Iron Spider's Spider-Man head seems like it's a little bit shorter. Does it seem like a little bit shorter? Maybe it's just me. Eyes are looking like they are a little bit differently sculpted. These eyes, by the way, also feel like they're lifted, or feel like if you run your finger along them, they're actually sculpted. So they didn't just slap on labels, put on some paints, and called it a day. In fact, actually, all of this is sculpted over top of the plastic. I mean, it looks really nice. I always really thought that Iron Spider looked better in the comics than he did in the movies. Just giving him like an Iron Man suit with arms and legs on the back, just for me didn't look at all like Iron Spider. This is really the way I like the look of him a lot more. The yellow looks good. I mean, the red isn't so much necessarily red. It actually kind of reminds me of like cherry taffy, where it's a little bit of pinkish orange, a little bit with the red. It's not really a dark red figure at all. Articulation on this guy is going to be exactly the same as pretty much all the other VenomVersus figures that we've already had a look at. So when you go to the top and you work your way to the bottom, all the things that you find across the ways will all be the exact same levels of posability. I guess the only other thing that this figure does benefit by having is that, yeah, you can rotate the arms a little bit, or these legs. There's not really much leeway with what you can actually do. This one actually is the loosest of the three, but you can move these up and down, and just a little bit, not by much though. His main articulation, no, in fact, actually is his head is on a ball joint. So yeah, again, you can rotate it all the way around. You can move it up and down a little bit as well, and you can rock it back and forth. Now, again, to see this line, $14 or so to pick up these figures, I'm still, again, surprised the fact we got as much posability as we did. Just essentially, when I first picked up the Spider-Man, which would be this guy right over here, I really kind of went in there with the low expectations, the lowest of expectations, that these figures will only have 5 points of articulation. And again, pleasantly surprised every single time I've looked at these figures. Really, again, surprised the fact that Hasbro put in as much as they did. By the fact that you can move the arms out. This one arm is a little tight, unfortunately, though, but you can still pull off 90 degrees easily. Well, somewhat easily. The arms rotate all the way around, just get out of the way of those iron legs. The figure does also have a bend in the elbow, which also allows the forearm to rotate back and forth. The one thing, though, that the figure does sacrifice, doesn't have any wrist articulation, doesn't have any waist articulation, but I really don't think it necessarily needs it in either. Legs, however, though, split out. It does give you somewhat of more uglier looking thigh. It does kind of look like somebody just hacked away at it, but that's the only way that you can get a more flesher body when you put the legs together. The legs go forward, and they can certainly go back as well. Not really much in the way of a swivel at the top of the thigh. However, though, the figure does have a bend in the knee. You can rotate also the lower leg. Now, these figures do also have, while not having them with them, they actually do at least have holes in the bottoms of their feet. So if you did want to use at least a display stand, come to that ready. And again, saving the day again is McFarlane Toys. If you happen to have yourself a DC Multiverse display stand, basic black with all the DC logo down below. I mean, it'd really be hard to kind of see that at all when it comes to displaying these figures. Yeah, in fact, you can actually use them and display your VenomVersus figures with those. Iron Spider. Would it be safe now to say that I've completed the line now? There are still a few figures like, I still like to get a Spider-Gwen. I haven't had any chance to find Spider-Gwen in the wild. And then there's also the Miles Morales. I think after that, I could probably call it a day. I have generally been quite happy with the VenomVersus figures as a whole. Again, it really started with Spider-Man, just more on a whim that I happen to have a few extra bucks available. I've gone to Walmart really looking in the hopes of finding something else, and then while I was just down the toy aisle, I ended up finding those figures. Yeah, the VenomVersus figures have been really kind of fun. I kind of am saying this in a way like I'm retiring my reviewing of actually even looking at these. If I do happen to come across Spider-Gwen or the Miles Morales seems more tempting on that day than it was every other day, I might just find myself picking that one up. But for the size of these figures, I mean, again, like $15, some could easily say, hey, that's a little too steep, my friend. But really, when you then look at the fact that like Marvel Legends figures go into the 40s or sometimes even $50, a $14 figure, as small as it may be, is still a pretty fun figure to pick up, not only if you're a kid, but if you're a kid at heart, like the person behind the camera. I don't want to say I'm never going to pick up any more VenomVersus figures. It certainly does depend if I happen to come across Spider-Gwen. That's really the one I want to get still now. There has been, again, a couple of times where I've seen the Miles Morales in the regular version and the deluxe version that had sort of the augmented armor. Again, like if I happen to come across those, if I happen to have a few extra dollars on that day, maybe I might pick up a couple more of them. I actually looked online too, just to see if there were any other characters that may have been missed, or maybe if my local Walmart never just ended up stocking them. And there has been, again, some VenomVersus Marvel superheroes, like an Iron Man. I think there was a Hulk in there as well, but nothing really seemed to say like necessarily they were tied to this line, other than just really packaging that said VenomVersus. Looking at the figures themselves, they just kind of look like regular Marvel 5-inch figures. Still, I think I'd rather just stick to the idea of having Spidey being the one that battles the symbiotes, and getting an Iron Spider of this size. Even though I'm kind of miffed the fact that unfortunately his legs didn't have to be yellow, why would they have not chosen yellow? Green works okay, I suppose. I mean, sort of in the same way that the classic Spider-Man had to have the web shooters in green. This is sort of, I guess, just to tell us that something isn't quite right with the armor. I think it would have made much more right if the armor had actually just had yellow legs instead of green. What do you guys think of Iron Spider? Let me know down below in the comment section. Have you guys at all been collecting the VenomVersus figures? Or is this a line that you just have generally walked past in the toy aisles with little to no interest at all of buying? In fact, let me know down below in the comment section, has there ever been just a figure that as you've walked down the toy aisle, you had a few extra dollars, you picked it up, normally you would have not even collected this line, but you just thought, okay, I'm here right now, I just see this figure, it looks kind of interesting enough, and you end up picking it up that way. And if you did, was it something that then spurred more of an interest to collect the remaining figures from that line? Have you ever had a circumstance like that? Let me know down below. If you guys did also enjoy this video, you can do it a solid and throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more? So, yeah, I hope so. There certainly will be, of course, more videos coming your way. That's always going to be a constant. So you want to make sure that you guys are coming back regularly to making sure that you're not missing out on anything that's posted new. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.